in order to provide that leadership, it's more than I am the chief executive officer of the company, therefore I am a leader. That's true from a title perspective, but leadership is much more broad than just having a title or a position, right? My experience in the military for 20 plus years is you earn not only the leadership or the respect of your subordinates by how you conduct yourself. Part of that is pouring into them, being attuned to their needs, being part of their growth, their promotions, their realizing what they wanted to do in the service. As long as, and part of it is also your rank, your experience. You coach, you mentor those folks. And, I had great pleasure when I was in the service of seeing my subordinates grow as people and professionally, and know that when they left my unit and went to another unit, that other unit was getting a better soldier.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Serving your employees, developing their skills, developing their mindset, transforming them into leaders. Does that sound pretty good? But who has the time for that? A lot of leaders I talk to want to develop their employees, but they're so into the trenches, if you will, the day-to-day of the business. They're so focused on, what do they have to do to get done, finishing their email list, catching up on that, attending meetings, that they often delay actually developing their employees and actually becoming the servant leader that they want to be. I say this because I know a lot of leaders tune in to this podcast that want to be there as a servant leadership, as a kind of a guide to develop their people. Today I have Dwight Hunt. He's the CEO of B3 Group. They're an IT service firm to the government, mostly veteran affairs. And he talks about the reason why they've grown so fast, being 109 on the Inc. list in 2019, continuing to grow today, is because of servant leadership. That thinking has made them grow really fast. Today we talk about the core essence of servant leadership. We talk about what often gets in the way, which is what you have to do. And I will let you in on this big secret. You got to fire yourself. That's the key to you growing and creating a servant leadership model or in your company. We also talk a little bit about what's going on in the phases of development with COVID-19, as Dwight has had to change his approach from being the visionary leader to serving the company right now with new projects, new insights, and new support. Today, we have a great interview for you, so hopefully you'll tune in to the full interview. Make sure you soak it in and make sure you actually tell a friend about Grow Think Tank, about how it's changing the way you lead, the way you grow your business. Thanks for tuning in here to Grow Think Tank. Really excited about sharing this with you. And before you run, I have done so many interviews over the last few weeks. I have such an exciting time to share with you that those interviews have been organized into the 12 core principles of fast growth companies. So all you have to do to get that is go to genehammett.com/worksheet. So you can get the 12 principles, and I've been able to go in there and find which episodes will align to each individual episode. When you subscribe to Grow Think Tank, you will find exactly what you need so that you can move forward. And many of them haven't been published yet, depending on when you're hearing this, but you can tune in to the date that means the most to you. Here's the interview with Dwight. Hi, Dwight. How are you?
Very good. Thank you.
Excited to have you here on Grow Think Tank.
Happy to be here. Glad we could get connected in this COVID-19 time frame.
Well, here we are. We're going to talk about some really interesting stuff around leadership. I'm glad the company's doing well, but the listeners in here probably have never heard of B3 Group. So tell us just a little bit about what you guys do.
We essentially deliver digital transformation, IT services, acquisition support to the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Well, that's pretty succinct. Appreciate what you guys are doing for our veterans.
It's an honor to continue to serve. Being retired Army myself, um, being able to manage a government contractor in the area that focuses on veterans, it's nice. It helps me continue to serve where I've felt called, through my life to be, servant leadership type position.
Well, we're going to dive right into servant leadership. To put all this into context, you were on the Inc. list. You were at 109 this past year, almost 60 million in revenues. I know you've grown past that, about 200 employees. Give us an idea of, beyond just growing fast, what are you guys really proud of there at B3 Group?
I'm most proud of our ability to scale. As you know, fast growth doesn't always mean complete success. It means success in revenue. But if you can't scale, if you can't meet the customer's needs, if you can't hire the right workforce, right, therein is your rub. So I'm most proud about our ability to scale our delivery. The quality of our delivery today is actually better than it was when we were smaller and had less contracts. So that's probably my most proud moment of the company as a maturity piece.
And given the size that you are, you're no longer on the front lines. You've got a bunch of people doing the work for you, and they're delivering better. So that's a good testament to your leadership.
Well, thank you. It's been an interesting transition. Brad and I obviously were very hands-on for several years, and as we moved from, I was the best payroll person and the best accountant, and Brad was the best proposal writer, right? So we were doing those, and as we've hired directors and vice presidents, we felt we were building an organization structure. But to be honest with you, some people miss that direct connection that they have. I mean, we like to still be a small business mindset, even with 200 employees, that Brad and I are accessible. But as we've grown, some people really miss that connection that they've had with Brad and myself, because we don't do those roles anymore that when we used to do everything.
I want to get back into this conversation about servant leadership. I was on your website doing some research, and you had actually told me that one of the core factors for growth was this approach to leadership. So what is your definition of servant leadership?
Again, servant leadership really is, in order to provide that leadership, it's more than I am the chief executive officer of the company, therefore I am a leader. That's true from a title perspective, but leadership is much more broad than just having a title or a position, right? My experience in the military for 20 plus years is you earn not only the leadership or the respect of your subordinates by how you conduct yourself. Part of that is pouring into them, being attuned to their needs, being part of their growth, their promotions, their realizing what they wanted to do in the service. As long as, and part of it is also your rank, your experience. You coach, you mentor those folks. And, I had great pleasure when I was in the service of seeing my subordinates grow as people and professionally, and know that when they left my unit and went to another unit, that other unit was getting a better soldier, right? And so that was kind of my philosophy growing. I was very fortunate as a young lieutenant and captain. I had great mentors and coaches who were lieutenant colonels and majors that poured into me to make me better. So that's kind of how I see servant leadership is: you serve your subordinates, you coach and mentor them, and as they grow, you grow. And as they have success, you generally feel that success, even if you're 2 or 3 layers above them, because you were a part of that.
Hold on for a second. Leadership is more than a title. This is one thing that I have seen over and over again, but you want people that have authority to be leaders, but you also want people to step up. You want to encourage them. Servant leadership, what the conversation we're having today, is really about how do you get people to step up? How do you develop them? How do you use your skills to coach them up? How do you use your skills to negotiate with them? How do you use communication to engage them in a different way? All of these things are extremely important for you as a leader. Are you developing those skills? Are you working on it? If you avoid it, you're going to pay the price. Back to the interview. Dwight, one of the challenges I keep hearing consistently is, yeah, that sounds great in theory, but I'm busy doing day-to-day work. I'm still driving sales. I'm still in the trenches. If you look at that, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
But how do you make the time to keep all of your stuff going and develop the people like what you're talking about through servant leadership?
Well, then you got to find the balance, right? So I'll tell you two things. If you're not trying to fire yourself from the job you're in, if you're a small business owner trying to grow, you're failing. You have to fire yourself from that job so that you can be the next level or the 2 levels leader that you need to be, that has the breadth and the vision. Now, the challenge of that is you're comfortable down there. That's where you started this business. That's where you've put your energy, and you see that return on your personal investment, but you're shortchanging yourself. You have to pull back. You have to start investing some of that into the next person who needs to replace you as the director of finance, which I was, and I was also the VP of operations, and I was also the CEO, right? So I kept firing myself from those levels so that we have the time to look across the organization and pour into the development of those next level leaders. The one thing we did when Brad and I first started out is we created an org chart, and we put our names in every single one of those jobs, right? And so there's 30 jobs, and they're all filled with a couple of names. And the goal was to replace yourself in all of those jobs so that you're eventually to the job you're supposed to be at the president and CEO level, or a managing principal for Brad. But you got to have the passion to pour into those folks, to know that your time and effort there makes them better and makes your organization better.
What I hear from that, Dwight, is really, I think, quite ingenious. At a micro level, if you're feeling the pressure of this and don't have that balance, you're still focused in the trenches, you've got to identify 1 or 2 people that you can build into so that you can remove yourself or let go of whatever functions they're doing. And then you just continue to do that over time until you get to the point where now, Dwight, you're the CEO of 200 people. You're still, you still have projects to work on. You're still moving forward, but you are able to, your balance is really just across the organization and the special projects that come up.
My job's focused. So now I'm managing the risk of B3. I've got to be 6 months, 10 months, 24 months out in front of where B3 is today. If I'm not doing that for B3 Group, who is, right? And so I liken it also, part of that's some of my military background, right? When I was a platoon leader, when I was a second lieutenant, I had a platoon sergeant. They took care of things. You had implicit trust on their experience, their capabilities, and you would say, this is what I need done, and then it got done. It kind of speaks to the professionalism of the non-commissioned officer we have in the Army. And that's kind of how I liken it, right? I need folks that I say, these are the things I need done. If you hire a director of HR, you hire them because they're better at HR than you are. Can you do HR? Of course you can. You've hired 3 or 4 people as you were growing, and your cousin and your aunt and every family member. After you exhaust that circle, what you've never done as a director of HR in your own small business is you've never filed the compliance report for 50 or more people for equal opportunity employment. And you've never filed this, and you've never filed, right? You've never done those things. So you have to hire someone that knows those pieces, that again, manage the risk you carry in human resources or contracts or finance, right? It's always a risk mitigation. You're better off with that person running that department because they're better than you. Pour into them, get them where you have that trust, that relationship, and then you get focused on 18 months out and the next level, right? Because that 18-month growth plan that you have, it's going to show up tomorrow, right? And you got to be ready for that. It's one thing to want to grow fast, but you got to be prepped to grow fast. You have to be able to sustain it. You can't say, oh, what are we going to, all we've done is write 15 proposals this fall. Now we won all of them. Okay, well, now what are we going to do? No. You got to know what you're bidding on, how many people that is, how that impacts your organization, and have that forward thinking, and then let those folks that are subordinates, if you will, to you, work the details and go through those churns so they can say, hey, we've got this, or hey, boss, I'm looking at the finance piece. We don't have a big enough line of credit to manage this much work, right? So let's get out there and work that piece. So it really is a trust and a relationship process for me personally. That's how I look at it.
I want to ask you, we had started this off, we're recording this after, I think we did a family count, 38 days of shelter in place here in Georgia. And you're the visionary that's looking 6, 12, and 24 months out. I got to be certain you probably didn't see this coming.
True. I did fail to identify COVID-19.
Well, let me ask you the question behind this, because none of us saw this coming. If you, even 2 months ago, if you said we're all going to be in place at home and beaches are going to be closed, you would have said you're crazy, you're out of your mind. That's not going to happen here. But you now have the space to look at this probably with a lot of intensity. What has been the real changes, the way you've focused your energies and what you're doing to mitigate risk and look at the future in this new era?
So it was kind of a phased approach, right? The first phase is make sure everybody's safe, secure, has the capability to work from home, and my customer accepts all of those, right? So we took every contract we had, we ripped them apart and made sure that every contract I had the deliverables could be met during this COVID-19 process. I was able to invoice all of that work and therefore no impact on my cash flow. So that's phase one, right? Phase two now is, how do I use this as an opportunity? Do I need office space? Should I have a 100% virtual company? So we're going through some of these internal churns, if you will, to figure out who are we going to be when we go back, right? And then the third part of that is, as we go back, what processes are we going to do to open the building? What am I going to be responsible for? What's the landlord responsible for? So we're looking through that. And then I guess future is, what are the opportunities for growth here, right? We are very, very fortunate that our customer at the Department of Veteran Affairs is allowing us to provide all of our capabilities for the most part through remote. So is that the new normal for us? Do I need to then think about the type of folks I hire for B3, that this is normal for them? That am I now competing with virtual companies? Am I going to have employees say, you know what, this 100% telework is perfect. I've been looking for this my whole life. I don't want to go back to my office, right? So now we start thinking about what's been the impact of this on the culture of B3? How do we address that, and then make sure that we continue to have the right workforce that allows us to deliver to our customer in almost any circumstance, whether it be, work from home or come into the office. But I think there's a ton of opportunity, and that's what I'm spending my time now. In 18 to 24 months, what are things that I could make an investment in today that would bear me more fruit that I maybe hadn't been thinking about, right?
Hold on. Dwight just said, who will you be when we come back? What he's referring to is, how will you be different, and how will you create the kind of company when we come back? You can look at this from two different perspectives. One is, how will you as a leader be changed because of COVID-19 and all of the things we're going through? How will you prepare for the future coming out of this, the opportunities? But also, what would the company look like? What would the strategy? Will you be going after the same customers? Will you be creating different programs and offers or products or services? Now is the time to be thinking about these things. Now, if you're in the midst of, cash flow crunches, then you want to make sure that you are protecting yourself and really getting that shored up. But if you're outside of that, then you want to be looking at the opportunities to look at the business and your own evolution as a leader. And now is that time. Back to the interview. Dwight, I appreciate you walking us through that. That's a very special time that we're all going through. And I think looking at it as phases, I've had many clients that are, afraid of what they've lost. and they're
Sure.
still stuck in phase one, and many of them
Right.
are seeing a boom, and they immediately went into phase 2 and 3. So it's a really good way to look at what you just laid out there. So we'll make sure that we get that to the right people in our audience. I want to go back to servant leadership, but also want to ask you a powerful question. We were talking before we cut the mic on about, what do you do that's a little bit different or counterintuitive? And you had mentioned, when you were working at this business in the early days, you never really thought about the money of something. Now,
Yep.
as a business owner, your first indication is, well, how can you do that? How could you even create a business? So what did you mean by your exact phrase was, here it is, never focused on the money?
Right. So again, I think if you go clearly, the purpose of having a business is to make a profit. Brad likes to say we are a .com, not a .org, right? But at the same time, if you spend, again, if your focus is every dollar, every nickel, every piece that you have to make on every proposal that we partner with someone, it sometimes is short-sighted for the bigger picture. Again, as we were starting out, we wanted to be the best partner with whoever we could find to partner with on the old T4 contract vehicle that the Department of Veteran Affairs had, the predecessor of the contract vehicle we have. The only way B3 survived back then was finding people who wanted to put us onto their teams. It was up to them to decide if we were a good partner. So instead of going in there focused on what our bill rate is and the uplift and all those pieces, we just focused on really doing a good job for them, delivering good writing from Brad, compliance check oversight from myself, hiring good folks to put on site with them if it was an on-site project. We focused on that, and by creating a high quality product, if you will, because the product was us, and our services to that company, we soon became a preferred partner for a lot of folks because they trusted us. They knew when you put B3 on the team and you gave us 2 FTEs or 3 FTEs, you're going to get a good proposal from Brad, oversight compliance check from myself, and 2 to 3 good folks on your team to deliver to that customer. And then you didn't have to worry about us. We were going to do deliverables on time. We're going to get our folks on ramped on time. My invoices were going to be on time. I mean, all of that was going to churn. Was no issue for you, as essentially I was your customer, right? So that was our approach. To your point, we should have thought about profitability more and should have maybe focused on margins and those type things. But because of where Brad was in his personal life, not married, no children, I was retired from the Army. Our level of risk was certainly different than possibly someone saying, hey, I'm going to quit the job I have today, start a brand new business, and I can have no revenue loss between the old job I had and this new business. We were not in that model. We were in a little more flexible model that we could ease into it better.
Well, I appreciate walking us through that. I want to wrap this up with mistakes. Is there a mistake? I know this is there was like, where do I start? But
right.
Is there a mistake that comes to mind that you can think of that you had to face and servant leadership was something that you really leaned on and say, how do I serve better here? What is that moment? Is there something that comes to mind?
I don't know if I can tie it into the servant leadership part,
Okay.
but for us, a small business, cash flow is king. Probably didn't realize that in banking relationships. So I guess if I had to flip it, I would have found a bank sooner that shared my values and that was interested in me. I learned a very hard lesson that not all banks are created equal. They all have different business models, which again, I didn't understand that. So I didn't have that right banking relationship where they were pouring into me as a customer because they saw the growth, the potential growth we had, right? So if I had a lesson learned, I would have found anything you outsource, which we outsource some accounting and obviously banking and those type of things, to make sure that the outsourced organization at least shares your vision and your culture to some extent. Some will say if it's not part of your culture, just outsource it. It doesn't matter. I would probably argue a little bit, and especially on the accounting side. When had really, really rapid growth, I didn't get the attention from the accounting firm that I expected, because we had to be one of the fastest growing organizations that they had. And they didn't treat us that way. They didn't recognize that. They didn't provide us what I felt the coaching and the mentoring to say, wow, we're looking at you guys' books and you guys are really growing fast. Have you thought about A, B, or C? So that's probably, I would have searched more for a banking relationship that understood where our vision and believed in it and poured into it. And I have that now today. And it's amazing when you get that supporting cast that sees you and believes in you and pours into you and helps. And it's been fantastic.
Well, that's a very good insight. And now today, that's probably even more so necessary to have that good relationship with the bank for many reasons. Dwight, thanks for being here on the podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I just love this conversation. Having an in-depth talk about servant leadership with a founder and the CEOs of companies really is kind of my jam. Hopefully you've enjoyed being along for this ride. I create this content for you as a leader. We all have to go through defining moments. This just happens to be one where we're all going through it at the same time. It's unprecedented. You've heard this before, but you have to evolve and change as a leader. And now things are different. So love you being here to connect with me, to take in this content. Hopefully you're doing something with it. If you're not, I want to put a spotlight on that. Why are you not changing things? Why are you not putting new projects on the table so that you can actually be the leader that your team deserves? My name is Gene Hammett. I work with companies that go through the defining moments, and these leaders really are evolving, and they know evolution is very important to their success. I talked with Dwight about that. Really a great conversation about how you must evolve to really be the leader that your team deserves over time. And it's different from 2 million to 10 million, to 20 million, to 100 million. There's constant evolution. If you feel like that in your own world, make sure you reach out to me. I'd love to get to know you. Just go to gene@genehammett.com. That's my email address, and we can connect. And it's not about me selling you something. It's about me serving you to get more clarity around who you are, where you're going, and what's standing in your way. As always, lead with courage.